Greetings and salutations. My name is Jack Willard. This is Paying Homage to Rush. Show number 1. Kamala's Tricks Don't Work with Brett. I'm so glad you're here for our first edition of Paying Homage to Rush Limbaugh. He was certainly one of my radio heroes, perhaps the greatest radio talk man of all time. Daytime talk goes to Rush, and nighttime, overnight talk goes to Art Bell. They have both left this planet, and we are mourning them. We miss them. By the way, in the overnights, Larry King would have the runner-up status, I think. He did overnight talk radio for many years, but then came Art Bell. But Rush, well, I first heard him on WABC radio. He was on from 10 to noon the first time I heard him. And, well, then that quickly led to another 2 hours from noon to 2, and they would syndicate the noon to 2 portion. And before you know it, noon to 2 grew to noon to 3. This is East Coast time, and he was physically in New York City at the time at WABC radio. And then there was no more morning show on WABC, no more local show, even though it's hard to use the word local when you're broadcasting in New York City. But right out of the gate, he was an attention getter. He had something. He had a fire in him. And so I started to listen and loved the part when he would go national just after 12 noon, and watched how he developed his style. You have to be a clever, talented individual to grow a local show into millions and millions of listeners all across the land, all across the United States and beyond. And he had that talent on loan from God. Rush Limbaugh, with one hand tied behind my back just to make it fair. He began to come up with clever terms for outrageous females who would scream and yell and rant about everything. He called them feminazis, the liberals, feminazis. It didn't apply to all liberal women. It kind of referred to that woman that we saw when Trump won the election, screaming as she watched the final results come in, the declaration that Donald Trump would be the next president of the United States. Oh, she can't take the news. She's used to getting her way, this one there. She's used to getting, what she wants, and she cannot fathom the idea that she lost, that she's not going to get what she wants, and Donald Trump is going to be the 45th president. So on this, our first show, Paying Homage to Rush, I hope there are many more. The title, our theme, Kamala's Tricks Don't Work with Brett. Yeah. Of course, I'm talking about Brett BAIR. And on Wednesday, the 13th of October 2024, which is now just yesterday as I record this, Fox News finally got Kamala to come on. She was supposed to show up at 5 o'clock. Well, Brett has to be live on the air at 6 o'clock to do special report. So by insisting on that time, she put the squeeze on him, put him on the hot seat in a sense, because he couldn't go too long. And they had other safeguards in place to make sure he wouldn't go too long. First, they said they would give him a half hour. They showed up at 5:15 and said, well, we'll give you 20, 25 minutes at the most. And, of course, the style that she had ready to go, it's a strategy. It's like a football game. And part of the game of football, I'm certainly not a football aficionado, but I know that part of the game is to fake your next move, But she's pretty easy to read because she does the same thing everywhere she goes. She is asked a question, usually from a friendly source, and then she just goes on to, she ignores the question completely and begins to spew the same old deceptive rap about the need to fix the border problem, because that's what Brett was going to hit her with straight out of the gate. And she's on Fox for one reason, to try to get some undecided voters that may watch Fox to come into her camp. That's the reason she's coming. And she has no intentions of answering any of his questions. But as we will hear in this clip from that interview, Brett wasn't having it. He wasn't having it. He wanted to get past her usual monologue. Let's listen.
Madam Vice President, thank you for the time.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Brett.
You know, voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration, because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right
do you,
now,
just a number, do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have
it's
an
a rough estimate of 6 million people
that
have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the CHIPS and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the... Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish,
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate,
I'm
and they
in the
didn't bring
middle
up
of
that bill.
responding to the point you're raising,
Okay.
and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, It is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border. That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill.
The border agents that just endorsed Donald J. Trump here in the 2024 election. Notice she is in her own little world. The first thing Joe Biden did when he became president is he took his pen and through executive order, he erased all the safeguards that President Trump had enacted. He issued a stop to building the wall. He had already said when he was running for office, that they would be encouraged to come and seek asylum. He encouraged them to come. And before he actually took the oath, yes, the oath, think about what is said in the oath that the president takes. He encouraged them to come, and they were en route before he became the 46th president of the United States. He took his pen and he erased every protection we had, and then thousands and then millions of people would come flowing into the United States, not just from Mexico, from Venezuela, from Honduras, from many, many countries. Some people say it's as many as 20 million or more, because there's the gotaways that we really didn't count. And they have flooded American cities and American states. And a percentage of them, at least 1,400, we have found out are sex offenders. And there has been rape, there has been robberies, there has been looting, all kinds of crime that the illegal immigrants have committed. So let's listen to a little more of the vice president with Brett BAIR.
It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing people. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations,
Not
which
gauging,
I have done as
gouging.
the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
Prosecuted trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
Six Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And in this election, this is rightly a discussion that the American people want to have. And what they want are solutions, and they want a president of the United States who's not playing political games with the issue,
I hear you.
but actually is focused on fixing
Six
it.
Democrats voted against that bill. It would have allowed 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the country a year. A lot of conservatives had a problem with it. These are the six Democrats. But more importantly, back to the original premise, Jocelyn Nungari, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday, campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Brett,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There's no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred.
It should not have occurred, and it very likely wouldn't have occurred if we didn't open the borders wide, if we didn't put in place an administration, if we didn't have Mayorkas leading the Department of Justice, these things wouldn't have happened. But they want wide open borders. They want them to find a path. They're not so interested in citizenship as they are a path for them to be able to vote, because they feel that they will vote Democratic. Well, the first thing we have to realize as I speak to you here in October of 2024 is effectively the Democratic Party is no more. R.I.P. No more. It's the progressives versus the Republicans. And what they want to make it is that the progressives are the only party, a one-party system of progressives with a tax and spend policy that will keep the country in turmoil financially. It will make this country broke forever and very beholden to places like China. Later on in this interview, she would mention Iran as the country that we most had to keep our eye on. But President Biden released millions and millions of dollars to Iran. And of course, they used them to funnel them to Hamas and other terrorist organizations. So what she tries to do here, what she tries to spin, I don't even think that her supporters really believe it. They're voting for her for another reason. Some because they think she will give them free stuff. There's the Kamala Santa Claus list. Kamala as Santa Claus. When she finds out that there's a group of people, whether they be black men or young couples frustrated that they can't afford to buy a house, she comes up with a simpleton proposal to give them X amount of money. Here we are, trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. FEMA is out of money. Mayorkas is saying, oh, well, we don't have the money to fund this hurricane season. They give well over $200 billion to the Ukraine with the idea that you could actually win a war against Vladimir Putin, who has the best nukes, and he's holding back. He doesn't want a nuclear war. He doesn't want to invade Poland. He felt he had a right to go into the Ukraine. I don't believe he did. I am so sorry for all those that lost their lives in the Ukraine and the Russian soldiers that have to do as they're told. I'm sorry for their loss of life. We're always sorry when innocent people, whether it be in Gaza or the terror of what happened in Israel on October 7th, we're always horrified by that. Not going to talk too much about Israel in this, our first show, because we're focusing on Kamala, and everybody's kind of holding their breath till Election Day on November the 5th. I heard Sean Hannity say that he said it on his radio show on Wednesday. He said, well, to be honest with you, the days are very long right now. The days are very long. The polls are hard to read. They bounce back and forth. Sometimes Trump is up in the swing states. Sometimes he's a little down. It goes back and forth. A lot of very informed people think that Trump is going to win this election. But as he likes to say, it has to be too big to rig. That's what President Trump says, too big to rig. Michael Savage, who's right here on YouTube, says, if it's close, they take it. If it's close, they take it. He uses another word, you know? So there's that. There's that. And you can drive yourself crazy, you know, watching this nonstop each day. There's about 19 days to the election. Everybody needs to get out and vote if you're hearing this prior to the election, because there's never been a more important election. Kamala Harris takes no responsibility for anything. We get stuck with terminology. President Biden, it was really just a move to look like he was doing something about what was a growing problem at the border, appointed her to be in charge of the border and fix the problem. Fix the problem. Well, you created the problem. She has no interest in fixing it because she is fine with people coming in, and of course the border agents, they couldn't process everybody, so we had a lot of unvetted people coming in and a lot of gotaways and what have you, and she would say just months ago that the border was secure. She said so many unbelievable things. The things she said in 2019 that she would stop fracking. Well, now she needs to win Pennsylvania. So all of a sudden, I don't believe that anymore. I'm not that big into the new Green Deal, you know. I'm not that big into it. Everything that was like supposedly a core issue for her, she's walked away from. She'll say anything till she gets elected, if God forbid that happens, and then she'll go right back to the extreme progressive principles that she's been espousing for years. You can look at everything she's done, every job from being in San Francisco, being the prosecutor and then the attorney general. Certainly Tulsi Gabbard did a good job of exposing Kamala in the debates when Kamala was running for president. And Kamala dropped out before the first primary. Nobody wanted her. And the most astonishing thing is, in this election, is that weeks before Joe Biden finally, under pressure, announced that he would not run for the presidency for a second term, nobody wanted her prior to that, including the members of the squad. They all said, well, there's other candidates out there, you know. There's other candidates, because they knew that it would be a very hard sell, the woman who's gotten no votes. But once it was Kamala, once it was obvious that you just can't get rid of her, how would that look? Then they all got behind Kamala, and obviously they ordained her to forget about the convention. She already had the votes to be nominated by the time the Democratic convention came along. And outside of the Democratic convention, you got protesters, people that are mad about what has happened in Gaza, saying from the river to the sea, which is code for kill all the Jews and what have you. This is what's going on outside the Democratic convention. She dodges every question. She's been doing this for a long time, desperately trying to perform her usual monologue. She's been taught this. It's not something that comes from her soul. I don't believe she has any core values, really. She has desires of what she'd like to see. She was there to blame Trump. question his mental capability, his mental health, and of course to say that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. Of course, it's exactly the opposite. All the things the progressives stand for are a threat to democracy. Brett was given just over 20 minutes, and then the handlers, I'll call them, the handlers were waving, oh, you got to stop, you got to stop. And he knew he had to stop pretty soon, but he could have got some more questions in. He never got to ask her about her support for BLM that was burning down American cities, burning down black businesses, destroying police cars, hurting people, terrorizing senior citizens. And many of these businesses that were lost were black-owned businesses. And she said, no, it's not going to stop until they get what they want. It shouldn't stop. And then she proceeded to have a fund to get them out of jail. She helped fund their release from prison after they had just burned down businesses and what have you. This is the Vice President of the United States still having that mindset that BLM was a good thing. Of course, the founders of BLM just bought themselves luxury mansions, and then she wanted, in effect, reparations for the BLM people that had been detained in prison, and I think that they got that. This is stuff you couldn't imagine a number of years ago happening in the United States of America. Calling for the police to be defunded. Cori Bush, who's going to be saying bye-bye to the Congress in January, thank God, is, of course, on video screaming, we need to defund the police. Yeah, until you need one. Of course, she has a massive security force, as all of the squad do, because they get a lot of death threats, and I'm not for death threats. I'm not. But so she's got her security force. She's got her armed people surrounding her. And she says, pretty much, how dare you question that? That's none of your business. I get threats and I have to be protected, but she doesn't care about your protection. Kamala, of course, has talked about taking away the assault rifles. And she has even in 2019 talked about taking away handguns. All the things she said back then, in fact, she said them until 2023, she now disassociates herself from. And yeah, she was recently asked about reparations for black people that didn't have a family member in the time of slavery or what have you. Reparations for young black people that, of course, they want their votes. For what? For what? No. As Bill Maher would say, we have come a long way. We have come a long way. The people that would deserve some compensation are no longer with us. They're no longer with us. So this is a time when prayer is needed. This is a time when whatever you can do to encourage others, help people get to the polls. Early voting has begun. You have to play the game the way it's set up now. Eventually it would be good if we could get rid of the drop-off boxes and what have you. The Republican Party is trying very hard to keep this election honest. What do you mean you don't need an ID to vote? You don't need an ID. That's absolutely ridiculous. If you're going to go buy beer, you need to have an ID. You need to have an ID if you should look younger than 21 years of age. It's not a major request. There have been states where the governor, like in Florida and in Virginia, where they have been taking dead people off the voting rolls. There was no doubt that there was shenanigans, but we want to try to give the voice of the people, everybody's voice, to be heard. That is an American citizen, a citizen of the United States. So I hope that you're planning on getting out and voting. And I can tell you that I hope to do more of these shows as we pay homage to Rush Limbaugh. He left us at 70 years old, lung cancer. He hung on for quite a while, but there came a time when the cancer just overwhelmed him. Yet on the 2nd of February 2022, that was my son's birthday. My son was born on Groundhog Day. Rush did his last show. And although he must have been in pain, he must have been exhausted, you would never notice as you watched him on the Ditto cam. You would never notice. He got through the whole 3 hours. And then the next morning, he died in hospital. And his wife came on that afternoon to announce that Rush Limbaugh had passed away. An irreplaceable legend. And wouldn't it be fun to have his take on things now? What would Rush be saying? He had to be replaced by two people. It takes two to replace somebody like Rush Limbaugh. Clay Travis and Buck Sexton do an excellent job. An excellent job. I take nothing away from them. I love to listen to them. But man, I'd love to have Rush. I'd love to have Rush back here. And the America's Truth Detector. Yeah. So, thank you for watching. Please, if you have not subscribed, hit the subscribe button, the like button if you liked it. Hit the notification bell so that when we come on, we don't do just this program. We do other programs as well. Hit the notification bell. We do live shows, sometimes Saturday nights at 10 o'clock East Coast time, called Worldwide Ramblings. You also notice the thanks button there. If you can hit the thanks button, $2, $5, $10 or more if you've been so blessed, that would help tremendously as we try to grow this channel. We call it the Virtual Church of the Disillusioned because in the very beginning especially, and sometimes now, we talk to people who were disappointed in how the church is today, how Christianity is practiced today. They got tired of the games and they just walked away from the church. So we don't want people to walk away from their faith in Jesus Christ. We admit we are flawed vessels, but we are set out to do better and to have a good finish. Have a good finish. That was Kamala's favorite word in the Brett BAIR interview on Fox. Yeah, she wanted to finish, and if she becomes president, in a sense, we will be finished. So let's not let that happen. Thank you for watching part 1 of Homage to Rush. My name is Jack Willard.